All right, everyone. Hello, hello, and welcome back. It's been a while. Um, it's been a long while at this point. Took a summer hiatus. We weren't necessarily planning it, and by we, I obviously mean me and the mouse in my pocket because I am a singular individual. But um, nonetheless, we are back, and I'm very excited today to have on as my guest, Chris Bissette, who has produced a number of lovely indie games primarily. So this is a little bit of a case. Um, you know, Chris, how about you introduce yourself a little bit? Tell everybody about you.
Shit, I should have prepared for this. Hi, I'm Chris Bissette. I shout a lot on Twitter as Pangalactic. I run a site called Loot the Room. I write mostly games. People might know The Wretched, my solo journaling game, and I write adventures and modules for like Mugborg. And I used to do some. In fact, I still do some fifth edition stuff, and I do all sorts of stuff. And I'm very online.
I would agree with the very online statement. Um, Probably in like the top 10 of my people I follow on Twitter as far as being prolific.
I'm always there. I
I've
never
gotten
sleep. I
I've gotten
just tweet.
better. I've gotten better about not being on constantly, but
Yeah, I've taken a real step back the last, like, 2, 3 weeks, and it's been great. It's been so nice.
yeah, it is. You don't realize until like you step away from it all. I took a week vacation in June, and then I came back and I'm like, why was I on the internet so
Yeah. What was I doing with all that time?
I still don't know.
Yeah,
That's right. All
yeah,
right. Well, let's start out today by chatting a little bit about two of your fairly recent projects that you've had. The one I want to
yeah,
talk about first is actually your Morkborg Kickstarter, and uh, yeah, Treasures of the Troll King is the name of it, and that was super successful. Um,
yeah, that's wild.
yeah, I don't think I need to ask like why Morkborg because anybody who's like looked at the game is obviously like, oh yeah, this is great. Um, but you know, what made you decide that to do a Kickstarter for a Morkborg adventure
Yeah,
because it's not
um,
popular, but it's not fifth edition.
it was do you know, I never intended to do the Kickstarter for it. I started writing that adventure back in October last year. I was at work and I was like I think I literally tweeted like, "Can I swear on this
Oh, of
show?"
course.
Cool, good. Should have checked that before we went live. I literally tweeted like, "Might fuck around and write something for Mugborg," and then I started writing it, and I was like, "Actually, this is really fun." And like Johan Noah, who does the art for Mugborg, had kind of messaged me being like, "Yo, this is really cool. If you want some art, let's talk about it." And so I wrote the adventure, and like I was planning to just publish it, and then why did I decide to do a Kickstarter?
Well, you got
I think
art from the Morkborg person.
Yeah, I think literally I just decided to do a Kickstarter so that I could pay Johan to do some art for me, and then 8 months later, I'm buying a house. So it went really well. It went
Yeah, no, I would
ridiculously well.
I would say so. It went really well.
Yeah, I,
Let's you
still
ended up with oh I can't 25,000 pounds, which is a lot of American dollars.
yeah, it's silly, it's really silly. It's for a stupid adventure about trolls in sewers, it's daft, but I'm very grateful for it. I'm still kind of reeling from it. It's,
Well, Kickstarter has been kind of surreal this year. I recently was part of a Kickstarter for a 5e product Den of
mhm,
Assassins, and we also had a
mhm,
very reasonable small goal. Yours was 1,700, and ours was $1,000.
mhm.
Um, and we got almost 27,000. Like,
It's nuts. It's I guess people have been at home a lot, and a lot of people have saved a lot of money the past year,
mhm.
year and a half, and, you know, what they've wanted to spend that money on has been entertainment stuff.
Yeah, especially as we're getting back to where, in some parts of the world, people feel a little bit more comfortable going and having face-to-face games with their friends. They want to
Yes.
take this new cool game. Guys, I didn't spend the entire pandemic laying on my couch watching Netflix on repeat.
I
That's when it
definitely haven't
came.
watched Gilmore Girls all the way through twice.
I've watched
Definitely not.
I've watched a good bit of TV. I got 2020. I watched a lot of TV. I've been a lot better this year though. Out of necessity. I have been busy, as have you. So,
I
you're wildly successful Treasures of the Troll Kickstarter. And then you also did something that I thought was really neat. You made a little book called D36.
yes.
And one, it was beautiful. It was a zine of weird, wacky, I believe you said strange RPG content
Yes,
that doesn't really fit anywhere else.
correct.
Um, let's see, and um, based on your wording of it being issue one, I expect that this is something that you plan to continue doing.
Yeah, we did the Kickstarter. I aimed to raise money for 4 issues. We only ended up making enough money for 3. Issue 2 is meant to be out August this year, but obviously, like, if I was just writing it myself, it probably would be out August this year, but obviously you're dealing with a lot of other people and everyone's got shit going on. Everyone's burned out and tired, so we're just taking it as it comes. Issue 2 will be out soon, hopefully, and issue 3 I'm hoping to get out by the end of the year, but we'll see. If it's late, it's late. It's one of those things.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's been a real excuse to, like, I love doing layout, and it's been an excuse to flex some layout muscles and, like, get weird with shit and not have to. I do everything myself usually, like, I write and I lay out and I do my own art and I do everything, and it's been really nice to just, like,
Except
have
editing. You
people give.
can't edit yourself. It's just
Can't edit
impossible.
yourself, no. You can try. Doesn't work well.
No.
No, it's been nice to just have people give me words and be able to just, like, put them on the page and do shit with them and not have to worry about actually writing them myself. That's
Mhm.
been really good.
Yeah. And the first one that you did, it had 10 little, uh, they're not really all adventures, 10 little things by 10 various
Yeah.
people. And was it was kind of
Weird.
intense. Uh,
Weird is the word you're looking for, I
no,
think. Yeah.
I
I gave everyone literally the pitch to everyone was, "I'm doing this thing, it's called D36. I want your weirdest shit. The theme is red, do whatever you want." And then I approached, like, some of my favorite people, and, like, a lot of the people I approached do, like, horror shit anyway, like Cat Evans and, like, Alex Clippinger and, Sam, and the shit I got back was just like, "Oh my god, what is this?"
yeah, and you've got a sentence here. The first issue is bloody and violent, and boy, if that is not one of the biggest understatements. I mean,
Yeah, there's
it is
a lot of content warnings in issue 1.
factually correct, but
Yes,
um, but yeah,
this is definitely an R-rated zine.
yeah, no, it was it. I'm not a horror person. I actually read through it and was like, wow, this is disturbing. I don't think
Yeah,
I'm ever gonna run any of these things, but this is cool to have, just as like inspiration and reference for. I don't know. Again, I'm not a horror person. Like these are all cool things that could be like in the background of my stories. That way I don't have to like go through the gory detail.
yeah,
It's
totally.
and you did a limited hardback of that, 36
Yes.
um copies of it, for, the obvious reason. And you lovingly hand inserted bookmark ribbons into one.
You know when you have an idea and it's a really great idea, and then you get to the practicalities of actually doing it, and you think, "Oh no, why have I done this?" Because I did the bookmarks, they've got book plates glued into them. I cut out like a peephole in Oliver Darkshire's, bit so you could see the page underneath, and I folded some flaps of, like, additional content into Laura Evans's piece, and it's great. I'm really proud of it. I never wanna do it again. Took forever.
Well, the easiest way to learn that something is too much trouble to deal with is to do it yourself. And I say this as someone who does cosplay. Um, this is
Yeah.
super simple. Like, I've done a dress in this pattern before. Yeah, no, no, I never.
I mean, I've got another 2 issues to do, and they're gonna have limited edition ones as well. So, regret that decision, but I'm also really happy with it. Like, it's a really beautiful book, and I'm really proud of it. It's turned out really well.
Yeah,
So, you
yeah.
know.
No, absolutely, it has, and, I think even with all the struggle going into the details on the limited cover, it creates this really nice thing that there's only a few out in the world, and it kind of becomes like a little collector's item, and it's nice to think that, like, you have collector's items out in the world.
Yeah, that's weird.
It's real strange.
It is.
Yeah. So, as we've kind of covered here, you do a lot of horror themed stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fair
That's
to
that's
say.
probably your favorite genre. Talking.
I don't know. I guess it is. Like, I read a lot of horror and I watch a lot of horror. I guess I've kind of fallen into producing horror stuff, even though it's not I don't set out to make horror stuff, but I guess I have ended up doing that, yeah.
Well, horror is super popular because, like, well, we all know how the real world is, and it's really nice to like have something out there to where you're like, well, everything kind of sucks, but at least it's not like this story that I read.
Yeah.
But things kind of in
It's
contrast. So like
I think
it.
it's one of those things as well where, like, I don't think of horror as a genre on its own. It's something that you can put onto a lot of different genres,
Mhm.
and I really like that. You could take completely mundane, like, slice of life literary fiction, and you can make it horror with, like, you could add 1 sentence to it and turn it into a horror story, and I really love that.
I do kind of agree. It's more of a thematic overlay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um, regardless of how many people classify it as a genre of various things, it is you could make any movie into a horror movie.
Yeah. There was a project someone did ages ago where they recut movie trailers to make them horror. I can't remember who did it, I can't remember which films they did because my memory is made of Swiss cheese, but it was really cool, and you should try and find it. Go down a little Google rabbit hole trying to find that. The next 45 minutes of the stream will just be us watching Ginny try and find these videos.
10 awesome comedy trailers recut as horror movies.
That was really quick.
So yeah, somebody did do that. We had Dumb and Dumber, the horror spoof, Uncle Buck, Better Off Dead, Ferris the 13th, Willy Wonka, Home Alone, Toy Story, Happy Gilmore, Meet the Parents, American Pie. So, um, yeah, that is quite the list to take and to completely swap. But I mean, you know, and we're kind of digressing from like tabletop design, but it's still kind of an important thing. Horror itself, like horror trailers, they have these hallmarks. Like in a horror trailer, you could pretty much expect to get like at least one good jump scare where they cue the music and then all of a sudden something pops out. And you've got your music in a minor or major. I don't know, whichever the one it is, it's spooky. I can never keep that straight. And so you can kind of take a lot of those same tropes though and use them across pretty much any media. Okay. I mean, and tropes are tropes for a reason. Like, you've got your noise in the woods. And of course, you know, white people from the city cannot ignore the strange noise in the woods.
Horror
Yeah.
Well,
Uh, Go ahead, you were saying.
I have no idea what I was about to say.
Okay. That's that's fine. That's
Sorry.
fine. That's fine. I've kind of lost where I was going with that too. But aside from your more horror themed games, of which I would, say objectively more popular ones are, starting with
Mhm.
like The Wretched, which was great and spawned a great many spin-off game jams to where everyone's doing this slow journaling thing. I thought that was really amazing. It's an excellent mechanic. I love solo games. They're so interesting because you
Yeah.
can really just do whatever you want.
They've had a real I mean, for obvious reasons, they had a real resurgence. I say resurgence. They had a real, like, boost last year because everyone was on their own and isolating, and I think I got really lucky with Wretched 'cause I didn't know it at the time, but I was writing a game about quarantine and being in isolation and all
Yeah.
that, and it was one of those, like, right place, right time, like, struck a chord with a lot of people kinda games, and I think a lot of the horror in that game comes from the fact that it was just, like, me channeling COVID-19 into a game, basically.
It became, I mean, that made it just made it that much realer to people, I think. We became easier to connect with it. And actually, I think the whole COVID pandemic has made a lot of um, that subgenre of like, there's a virus that's gotten out and everything, and you're like, made it more real, but it's also made it harder to have some of that suspension of disbelief for
Uh-huh.
certain aspects because you're like, we can't even say avoid it like the plague anymore because
Yeah, it's weird when you like, kind of pandemic horror has always been a genre, and obviously we've had pandemics in the past, we're all I'm old enough to remember, like, bird flu and swine flu, and we
swine
had
flu, bird flu,
we had
the
sort of
Spanish
mouth to
flu,
ear, there was Spanish flu, SARS, um, but none of them really affected us globally the way this has,
not in the
and I
modern
think
era.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, and, like, I think if you look at pandemic horror now, it doesn't just hit different because you're living through because you've experienced it, but also because you look at the way people react and are like, "Oh, actually, that's not how people react in this situation at all."
No, no logic just like if it existed to begin with. Uh, but like I think too that that's kind of for people who write that kind of stuff, kind of offered like a new vantage point, new perspective on like what do people actually consider frightening about pandemic. Um,
Yeah,
and a lot of it's just like that uncertainty. There's a virus going around, and people are um, quietly dying in their sleep. Isn't as great. People are exploding with guts going everywhere. Now that's a
one thing I think's been really interesting is we've known for years that the scary thing about horror is, like, lack of agency, like,
Mhm.
fear happens when characters lose their agency and, like, whether that's in films or TV and that's how you create horror at the game table a lot of the time is you take away a player's agency over their character, and it's been really interesting to see that happen in real life because a lot of the fear of this whole situation has come from people not knowing what to do or being told they can't do the things they want to do and not feeling like they've suddenly not got any control over their lives, where they maybe had an illusion in beforehand that they did, and it's been really interesting to see that play out in real time, even if a lot of people have really shown their entire ass. It's been really fascinating to watch.
Yeah, and for everyone not aware, Chris is in the United Kingdom and I'm in the United States, two countries where, real life talking for a minute, two countries where people have had a very hard time dealing with it. I think that's putting it lightly, but they've had a very hard time, mentally dealing with the pandemic. Um, you know, Actualities of like governments and vaccines and all of that aside, it's been odd. Some people took it very well and followed mandates and this, that, and other, and other people just from the beginning, exactly like you said, they were fearful. Their agency was being taken away, and I think that's a great thing to think of when you're thinking of designing like that. Like, how can you do that without like taking away the fun as well? Because part of the
Mhm.
fun of role playing games is having that agency.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, I think
you can affect the
As a horror
story,
fan, I
but, you
think
know.
it's fun to be scared. Um, like, you go to horror to be scared in a way that is safe and non-threatening.
Mm,
And I've got no idea where the rest of that point was going to, I'm sorry.
okay. Uh, but aside from horror stuff, though, you do
Mhm.
some other more lighthearted stuff.
Yeah,
So I was trying to go through and find how many games you've released at this point, and I was having a difficult time with this.
quite a
Um,
lot.
yeah, it is quite a lot. I
Mhm.
know, in your shop on your loot room um website, you've got uh 16 things listed there, variety of print and PDF, and I'm sure that that's not, everything you've ever done. Some of it has been on itch, other things are on I don't know, wherever they're at. I don't know, did you actually publish something on the DMs Guild?
Yeah, I started out on the DMs Guild.
Yeah.
I started on the guild in, I think, 2016, and I did 2 adventures and some, like, trinkets books and things like that, and then I basically took a year off doing anything, and when I came back to making stuff, I'd stopped playing D&D, and I'd started playing other things, and so I started making other things, and I'm now weirdly swinging back towards maybe wanting to make some stuff for D&D again, but we'll see. Um, but
Oh,
yeah, it's
oh,
been
yes, you do. You have 22 items on the DMs Guild.
holy shit, okay, that's more than I thought.
Well, I
Lots
mean,
of them collaborations with,
yeah,
like, people like Phil
collaborations.
Beckwith and Jeff Stevens and
Yeah. That's
yeah.
Jeff Stevens has been interesting getting so many people with, like,
Yeah,
a lot of credit.
Jeff and I started out on the guild at roughly the same time. I think he was there a little bit before me. He was one of the first people that I became really friendly with on the guild. He has given me a lot of chances. He's asked me to do a lot of stuff, and I've let him down a lot of times. And he keeps coming back and giving me chances again and again. So I'm very, very grateful to Jeff.
Yeah.
Um, he's been
Yeah.
a big supporter since day one.
And your first thing was September of 2016 on the guild there. So dark deeds, character backgrounds.
Yes.
So just, we'll start out, just insert a little bit more horror into fifth edition.
Yeah.
Um, 2016, that was around when we got Curse of Strahd. Anyways, I'm trying to count in my head. Uh, yeah, yeah. We were doing two books, roughly a year for a while there, and that was the fourth book, so 2014. I could look it up, but that takes the fun out of it. Roughly around that time. So, it actually was a pretty sensible kind of thing to put out then. And you've, done a lot of other things since then. Like you said, you're a big fan of tables.
Yeah, love tables, love roll tables, love random shit.
Yeah. Um, tables are really interesting because it's something that a lot of people just kind of skip over, because they are kind of tedious to do. Not everyone can sit there and think up, you know, 500 different trinkets that you might find in a village. Like, it gets hard. But they add so much to, various games because they serve as inspiration. And that's kind of how I see tables, right? You don't have to roll and do exactly what it says. You can, or, as a game
Yeah.
master, dungeon master, you can do all these rolls ahead of time, get your elements, and be like, okay, get a story that incorporates all of these. It's about to get weird. I
Yeah,
need
they're
need a
just
duck,
like
a mirror, three kittens, and a horseshoe. I don't know why that's the
Yeah,
first four things that came to my mind. Okay.
I mean, you've gotta write that now.
No, we're writing predictive text RPGs.
Hell yeah.
Um, I've actually started into the. It was your tweet that I saw that from, and I quote retweeted it and got mine, and a couple other friends did it, and now I've started into like game design with them on like various ones, and I'm like, no, no, this is good. We're gonna do this.
Amazing. I wanna see that when it happens.
Yeah. I don't even remember what mine said now. It was about being late. All that. Uh, game. Searching something on Google is a lot easier than finding something needed.
Yeah, I I recently set up a private Discord server just for myself so I could save tweets that I might want to go back to later and actually be able to find them.
You know you can bookmark tweets though, right?
Yeah, but you can't search your bookmarks. Oh, Twitter's awful. It's just a hell site from top to bottom.
I've never tried. Oh yes.
You know, like, remember in the 90s they had loads like Dare to Resist Drugs and Violence t-shirts? We should get like Dare to Resist the Bird app shirts and just like get everyone off Twitter because it's terrible.
I mean, you're not wrong, but also like at the same time, um, if I need to know something as it's occurring, play by play, like I'm gonna go to
True.
Twitter. Like I want to know like by the minute updates on some event happening in whatever part of the world. Twitter has got me covered. Um,
That is true.
yeah, back to the tweet though. My predictive text was the RPG is about to be a little late. You play this game by the time you get here. Uh, my follow up was, well, I'm gonna write some rabbit. I'm late. I'm late. And whoever shows up last gets to be the rabbit.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I kind of did start in on that, and in my mind, it's definitely a more narrative game. Um, and a whole big chunk of it is determining what exactly is the rabbit late for, and why
That's
does it
awesome.
matter?
So
Why
you
does it
need some
matter?
random tables.
Yeah. So the point that I was going for there is like it, like the oddest things are inspiring, and so like I think that it's like really important to have people out there who focus on like these little things rather than just like a bunch of people publishing adventures. Because if we just had adventures, and some books with subclasses, like, or player options, like things would be very boring,
Yeah.
very boring. Um, oh, um, oh, I look over here. I'm like, what am I? Um, I know how to do a show. Um,
Just blame me. Just be like, that Chris was a terrible guest.
it's been a hard year. Everyone is having difficulties with keeping things straight. They're remembering stuff. Heck, there's actually a portrait hung on the wall behind me. Nobody can see it, but it has glass front, and I have been writing to do notes on it with a dry erase marker.
I do that with my mirror.
Yes.
I write on my mirror with chalk and then
I
don't read it because I try not to look in the mirror.
so my stuff is still kind of in disarray from moving from Chicago in with my partner in Michigan. So I have a giant glass whiteboard. I haven't hung it up anywhere because I I literally don't know where there's a space on the wall that it would fit. I have a smaller whiteboard, um, but I don't know where it is in my boxes of stuff. Um, And while normally my mirror that I have, my nice mirror in my condo, was hanging in my entryway, so I would write notes on it that I would need to remember before going out the door. Because, before going out the door, I want to check and make sure like my hair is like not doing this thing or whatever. And then I'd be like, oh, I've written something. What did I write? Take your umbrella. It's gonna rain tomorrow. Oh, thanks, past me. Um, or pick up ketchup or out, and you've been angry about it 4 times.
Oh, I should start making notes like that. I should start making useful notes.
Well, there have also been notes where it makes no sense, such as like, um, I think I had one once, and it was like blue candy ring. What? What? Mean? Like, like, do these all go together? I don't know. Um, so I've gotten so many like various things. Like, is there like a commonality to how you approach game design? Do you tend to start with a theme, start with like a counter, start with like uh, a small bit of a story and like build on that, or a character, or like I don't know.
It honestly depends on the project.
Hmm.
Like everything, like it's a really useless answer, but everything is
Oh,
different. So like with so for example, like Under the Floorboards was a game I wrote for Zine Quest last year, which is about being it's basically the borrowers as a role playing game, and that started literally because I wanted to write a game about that was inspired by the borrowers, where you play tiny little people living in a big house stealing things. Um, and so that started with the actual idea, um, and I just kind of there wasn't a lot of, like, game design that went into that. I was like, "Okay, cool, it's gonna be, like, very loose PBTA. We're gonna take 2d6, and it's gonna play really simple mechanisms," because the game is about the content. Like, the bulk of that writing was, like, the characters and the locations that you would go to and things like that.
yeah,
And then
what the
something like
characters do while they're placed, rather than
yeah.
like how do I go about knowing if I did the thing?
Yeah, exactly, like that the actual rules side of it was secondary, whereas with something like Dice Souls, which is what I'm working on still at the moment, um, that's again started with the idea, which was that I wanted to write a game that was, I wanted to make Dark Souls work on the tabletop in a role-playing game, and so that started with me saying, like, what's core to Dark Souls is that loop of trying something, failing, dying, the world resetting around you and trying again in exactly the same situations, and so that meant that I had to, like, build mechanisms for that to work on the tabletop without it being boring and repetitive, and so that required me to build, like, an entire mechanical framework to then hang the game around, so I had to approach that in a completely different way to Under the Floorboards.
Hmm.
I have no idea if that actually answered the question you asked or not.
No, no, no. It did. It did. So, your inspiration kind of varies from game to game, which makes total sense. Because y- you know, uh, once you get outside of D&D, like games have so many different mechanisms for like how you actually play it that you can't start every game, the same way. And I'm trying to find the movie that you just reminded me of. Uh, Time loop.
Was it
And
Edge of Tomorrow?
no, wait, was it what? Edge of Tomorrow?
Or is that called it's called Live, Die, Repeat in the States, I think.
Yes,
Tom Cruise one.
yes. Um, where you got yes, exactly, Edge of Tomorrow. It was actually called Edge of Tomorrow here as well. I just all of a like that was actually the first thing that popped up, but in my mind, I read Tomorrow War, and I'm like, no, I haven't seen that yet. That's not the movie.
That's the other one. Yeah, that's the new one.
That's the new one. Um, But yeah, so that kind of like mechanic where you go back and you're doing that like Groundhog Day, but that wasn't quite the same
Uh,
feel. Um, is a very interesting mechanic to take in gameplay because in Dark Souls, specifically like you said, revolves around that. It's very core to the
yeah,
thing. And
like,
for
I wanted to do that without it feeling like a grind. Because
Mhm.
the thing with Dark Souls is that, like, there's that whole, get good thing where, like, you will just keep beating your head against the same part of the game until you figure it out, and I didn't like especially a tabletop game, it has to be fun. You can't if you make a tabletop game that isn't fun to play, the 2 people or the 4 people playing it are gonna be like, "Yeah, fuck this, let's play something else."
let's just file this in the garbage bin.
Yeah, exactly, like, let's just play D&D instead, you know?
Right. I mean, I think though that you know being able to take that step back and kind of realize that you have to approach each different game and game system that you're designing for and powered by the apocalypse is great for so many things because it is so like rules light Lucy. Um, and being able to be able to like take something and be like, okay, I want to do this, and the core concept, the core thing that I have to keep the feel of my inspiration, this, and then finding the system, if it exists, that
Yeah,
works to keep that mechanic going. So like not every game would work for that time loop thing. It would not go very well for you could force it into D&D, but the
yeah,
mechanics really aren't
definitely.
there.
I think one thing that I'm learning, I'm starting to pivot more towards writing content for systems again, like writing adventures and things like that. Because I spent most of the last year writing a new game every month, and what I'm realizing, and this isn't groundbreaking knowledge, it's like not everything has to be its own game. Like there are hundreds and thousands of systems that already exist that do the things that you want to do. And so I think the way I'm looking at it now is that I need to have a really good reason to write a new system.
And
Um,
I think
sorry, go on.
that no, you're good. I think that realization that like all these systems exist is something that's hard for people who get into it and they think they have this new, groundbreaking, creative game system they've come up with, and then they start describing it to someone who's played tons of indie games, and they're like, "Oh, that's this."
Yeah.
You mean I just spent 6 months designing the thing that already exists?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, like, you cannot possibly know everything. You're never gonna be able to read or play every game, and I definitely don't think that like, when we did the Wretched Jam and people were writing Wretched and Alone games, one of the really great things about that was that a lot of people wrote their first games ever, and a lot of people had never even played role-playing games. I don't know how they found out about Wretched and how they found out about the Jam, but a lot of people had never even played role-playing games and were writing games for it. And, there's definitely a subset of people who think that you need to know everything and you need to be widely read to be a designer, and I think that's absolute bullshit. Obviously, you risk reinventing the wheel when you write a new system, but you always learn something from it. You always bring something to the table that is uniquely you. Um, Writing systems is fun. I just think for me personally, I need to have a reason now to actually write a system instead of saying this is going to be a mothership module or this is going to be a Morkborg module or whatever.
Or, I've had this really cool idea for some options that expand upon the rules that exist in Morkborg. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
do a
exactly.
supplement. Bonus rules.
Yeah,
And yeah, I think it's definitely impossible for anyone to know everything, and it's very unrealistic to expect everyone to know everything. Like most people don't even know everything that they, need for their job going into any new job. But that's the beauty of the world is that we can constantly learn new things, and Google is amazing.
yeah.
That's the IT secret. I'm just a really great Googler.
Yeah,
It's just all, it took me what, like 5 seconds to pull up that list of comedies turned into horror.
absolutely. I don't think I could have found that, and it was me that brought it up.
Well, it's all a matter of how you search. Um, but yeah, but there's a lot to be said for building on something that already exists too. Like if you're building
Yeah,
a new system, you are literally starting from the ground up with not only the system, but the fan base, the materials for it. Like what exists at the beginning is literally only the thing you wrote. There's no adventures someone else has done. There's no articles on the internet that explain it to somebody. There's just you and your marketing. And
yeah,
that's that's very hard for some to make a new game. and then to market it. Um, which,
Marketing's horrible. I hate it.
yeah,
I hate
marketing
having to do it.
is by far one of the hardest parts of game design.
Yeah, this is the thing where we're so it's such a small industry, and everyone's basically running a solo operation, so you have to be able to do everything yourself effectively. You as well as doing the writing, you're project managing, you're marketing, you're doing payroll if you're employing people, you're filing your own taxes, you it's so much for what is effectively, for a lot of people, a hobby.
Mhm.
It's a wild amount of work, but it's like it's very rewarding, it's very fun, but
I
God, you gotta learn a lot.
Yeah, I'm my own accountant. Um, I don't do my own editing, as we've established. That's not a good idea. I do the writing, um, like narrative design, all of the story development, everything. Mechanics, not so much. I tend to shy away from that because it just gets into more stuff than I need to do. And then, marketing, promotion, keeping your social media presence, and it's a lot. You are essentially like a one person at a business. And that is a really daunting thing for a lot of people coming into the industry. They're like, I'm a really good character designer. And you're like, great. Who are you going to get to publish your characters then? I was just going to do it myself. Hey, how are you going to convince people to buy them? Well, they're really good. Well, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, no. We're going to assume that what you've made is good, but that doesn't get people to buy it. It could be the best thing in the world, but if your marketing is shit, it doesn't matter.
yeah, it's really hard, like, I started Loot the Room in 2016, and it's only in the past year that I have started making enough money where I'm able to say, "Right, cool, end of this year, I'm gonna go full time, and this is gonna be my work," but that's been 5 years, and it will be 6 years in the making when I actually do it, um, and that's fine, like, no overnight success doesn't happen generally. Even when it looks like it happens, it's always the result of years and years and years of hard work that you just haven't seen. But I also think that, like, I think a lot of people come into things wanting to be an overnight success, but, like,
Putting a lot of pressure on yourself.
putting a huge amount of pressure on yourself, and then what if you then find that you don't actually like doing it? I'm not saying any kind of, like, there's no nobility in being poor. I've been poor and it fucking sucks. But I don't even know what I'm trying to say anymore.
Like, um, come into it, they think it's gonna be everything, they devote their life to it, and then they find out, man, this is sucking.
Yeah. I don't know, obviously, we see that in RPGs. I think you maybe see it more often in streaming, because
Mhm,
I think people look at streaming especially and think, "That's easy. I could do that, and these people are making a lot of money doing it." And A, the people you think are making a lot of money probably are not making a lot of money, and B, it's really not easy. I tried streaming. I'm a Twitch affiliate. That's an exhausting job,
mhm.
and I do not think I could hack that for more than a few months. I have huge respect for people who make a living out of streaming because that's an impossible job.
Yeah, no, likewise, Twitch affiliate as well, and, I managed to get affiliate while I didn't have a day job. I was unemployed for, like, a 6-month span,
Mhm.
2019 going into 2020, and I was like, "Okay, so I'm full-time freelancing right now, not by choice." So, gonna do my writing, do my editing, and, I'm gonna give this streaming thing a try because it's another way to build your brand recognition, but, like, it is, difficult because, in addition to all the things that I am for designing, I'm my own marketing for my show. I'm my own guest coordinator. I make my own overlays. I produce shows. I post them. I do them live so that I don't have to edit them.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you have to market those too. Otherwise, people don't show up and watch it, and then you don't get any money. And it's just like, people are like, oh, it's easy because I'm just talking, or I'm just getting other people
Mhm.
to come and talk. Well, if you've ever tried scheduling an in-person game, try that. Blindfolded after you've been spun in like 30 and that's organizing a group for a streaming game.
Yeah, pretty much. And then you've gotta perform for the 4 hours that you're playing as well, because 'cause you're not just playing a game with your friends, you're playing a game that people are consuming for entertainment, which is itself a completely different thing. Like, I've done a few design streams, um, where I wrote a Wretched and Alone game on stream, um, and it's a completely different like, ostensibly, it's come and see how I write a game, but it's not how I write a game because when I make decisions when I'm writing in private on my own, the way most people write, I'm not thinking about why I'm making those decisions necessarily.
Mhm.
I'm not certainly not explaining them aloud to anybody, and I don't have to be entertaining while I do it either. Um, it's a whole different skill set to be people hear streaming and think, "Oh, it's just playing games." You're a broadcaster, and people go to college to learn to be broadcasters. So, yeah, it's really tough, and I have huge respect for people who do it.
And yeah, like you say, even if you're just doing something alone, and I was streaming Magic the Gathering Arena when I started, and that was what I could do all by myself without having to coordinate people.
Mhm.
It feels really awkward to like be sitting at home alone narrating everything you're doing out loud. You're like, man, if
Yeah.
someone comes in, I am gonna sound so ridiculous.
Yeah, you have to really be very unself-conscious, I think.
Yeah.
The dog agrees.
Out of the window, dude. Fine. He's an old dog and he's not allowed to go to the front window because everything outside gets him going. Um, and the dog right now. So, yes, the dog does agree. I sound ridiculous talking to myself. Um, but there's like varying levels being in the games industry, and especially now, like, well, since fifth edition released in 2014, the industry has just loaded with popularity, and it's really overwhelming to a lot of people to kind of like be like, how do I get into that?
Mhm.
And so, like, I mean, someone who's designed for the world's most popular role playing game and has designed their own games, like, what would you say to someone trying to come into the industry like at this point? Besides, don't, which is the advice I give.
I mean, it's one of those things where especially with the DMs Guild, the market is way more saturated than it was 5 years ago, which makes it harder to break in and be noticed. But it also means the network of people that you can surround yourself with is that much bigger as well. Um, and, like, just start a blog. Just bring back blogs, not everything has to be a commercial finished product that you put out for money. Just write for fun and put it out and see how people react to it and figure out what you like writing. Like when I started out in the DMs Guild, I was blogging as well, and that's where I really figured out the kinds of things I like to write, the kinds of things I like to make, and what I don't like making without any pressure for it to also be a commercial product. I think I don't know if this is good advice, I don't know if it's bad advice, I
Oh,
don't even know if I'm qualified to dispense advice, but just make things for you and put them out there for people to pick up or not as they want. And the more you figure out your own voice, the more you figure out what you're good at, the better your work will be, and the better you'll get at
I think that's
selling
actually
it.
excellent advice, and it's really important for some industry to know, like, you can look and you can see the trends and see, like, what people are buying a lot of, and you force yourself to make that kind of thing. But if it doesn't make you happy, like why are you doing it? Because it's very unlikely to make you rich if that's the other thing you're striving for. Um,
Yes.
as but as my good friend Paige Lightman says, the best way to get a small fortune in the tabletop RPGs industry is to start with a large fortune.
Yes.
And not to discourage people from in, because there's a lot of space for new people to bring in new fresh ideas, and like I think that's great. Because more people come in, we do more big collaborative projects, they learn stuff, we learn stuff, everybody learns. Great time. So like just manage expect
Yes.
I think that's the takeaway from that. um and that's expectations, whether you're writing, you're editing, your layout, you're doing, you're doing a blog even. Um, and the thing is, and it's a thing that's been going around right now, a lot of discourse about it. You don't have to monetize.
No. And give yourself permission to be shit.
Oh,
Like, you don't not everything you do is gonna be great. Your first stuff certainly isn't gonna be great. Everything you
my
do
first thing still makes me like shake my head in like
yeah,
shame.
yeah, it's ridiculous. Like, everything you do will be better than the thing that you did before. You're always gonna learn from it. So just don't put any huge expectations on yourself and just know that whatever level you're at now, in a year's time, you're gonna look back at it and think, "Oh, oh, I'm better than that now." But that's good. That's growth. That's what you want.
Mhm. And
So just,
I
yeah,
look back
give
to the
yourself
stuff
permission to
from,
suck.
was it 20, I don't know, I think it was around the same time, 2016, 2017 when I started. I look back at that stuff and I'm like, man, that's utter garbage.
Yeah. Like, you brought up, Dark Deeds, and I cringed inside like, "Oh, shit." I'd forgotten all about that book.
I mean, you're laughing and it's kind of funny, but I've actually gotten kind of into the habit of doing that when I have people who publish stuff on the DMs Guild, be like, the first thing you published was this, and they're like, oh, I had forgotten about that, and I liked it that way.
That was, that was before I only got diagnosed with ADHD a couple of years ago, and in hindsight, like, the reason I wrote Dark Deeds was because I started writing the next thing I released after that, which was The Wheelhouse Prison, and I realized that I needed a background for one of the characters, and so instead of just making the background for that character, I went and wrote a whole book of backgrounds that I released before I finished that product.
Um, man, I'm still kind of fortunate that the first thing that I actually wrote is not what shows up as my first published thing on the DMs Guild. So if anybody does this to me, it's kind of buried because things were weird and timing and publication dates on everything got shuffled. First thing that I actually wrote ended up being like the, I don't know, fifth or something that got published.
Mhm.
Jeff Stevens, of course, was my first published thing. Encounters in the Savage Jungles. We both worked on that, and you know, I'm glad that that got to publish before the thing that I wrote first, because I learned so much from the first thing that I wrote. Key being, don't write a mystery to begin with. It's hard.
Yeah, they're
It's
hard.
very
They're
it's
hard to
very
write.
hard. Um, yeah. I've done some things with mystery elements since then, and it's been better. But like, I learned a lot from that
Uh-huh.
bastard. uh, you know, Having the Encounters in the Savage Jungle thing be first, and being part of that with so many people, and being able to read other people's work and get it out there, and not have to worry like, okay, everything's gonna hate this one product because it's just me. Really took a whole lot of pressure off too. So I think it kind of makes it, you don't have to participate in collaborative projects, but
They're a good place to start, definitely.
they're a great place to start, and they also help you build those connections.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
is super important because for many people you can't do everything. I can't do layout for, I can't
It's
unless I'm using or her wonderful word temp, and then I can do some basic but that's exactly what it is, basic layout. That's not my forte, that and art.
Mhm.
Um, that's what I pay people. Um, gotta
Yep.
make those connections. Um, that said though, we are pretty much at the end of our time. Um, Chris, do you have anything going on right now? Any projects that you want to promote, that are upcoming or that you just published that you buy more copies of or whatever?
I mean, buy copies of everything. It's always appreciated. Um, I what am I working on? I've got, we talked about a bit about Dice Souls, which is my Souls-like game.
Mhm.
That was meant to come out in February, and 2021 happened, and it still hasn't released. So that's the next thing that I'm going to release. I don't know when it will be out. You can pick up the I wrote a quick start for it, so you can pick it up, you can play a little bit of it, um, and that's free. And you can find that at loottheroom.itch.io/souls. That'll be the next thing that I do. And then I don't know what's next after that. I'm going full time in January. I'm going to go back to doing monthly releases, and I'm going to have I'm going to be relaunching my Patreon for monthly releases, and I'm going to be launching a second Patreon for a long term project that I'm not prepared to talk about yet.
No, 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 that's fine. Don't talk about it too soon because that makes you anxious and it puts pressure on you.
Yeah,
Um,
but if you want to join my Patreon, you are obviously more than welcome to do that as well. When it starts back up with Dice Souls, I do monthly releases. They'll alternate between games and content for other games. It starts at $1 a month, and that's patreon.com/loot the room.
and you were doing some really cool like uh tables and things last I looked at it. That was like a year or I don't even know how time is the
Yeah,
thing.
that was my original Patreon, and then I pivoted it last year to doing monthly games, and now we're gonna be going to 1 month it'll be a new game, the next month it'll be like an adventure or something for D&D or Mukborg or Troika or something.
That's probably feels like a lot of work. Um, but yeah, no, so very excited for that. Aside from your website, everyone can find you on Twitter.
Yes, at Pangalactic, Pangalactic.
Um,
I'm on there a lot.
I'm pleased that I spelled that correctly since it's been below your face the entire time. Uh,
Excellent. Yeah, nailed it.
yeah. Thank you for being on the show today. This has been absolutely delightful. I have to have you back sometime after you finish your Dark Souls game and get started on that other project. But rush, no rush.
Yeah,
Um,
we will absolutely do
there'll
that.
be
This was
plenty
really
of
fun.
time. You can, of course, always find me online. Um, just online. Uh, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Twitch. It's just under my name, Jenny Loveday. Um, I've been saying this for months now. YouTube will eventually be under my name as well, but I'm still fighting with it. But it is what it is. And my website too, loveday.com, where you can find all the cool stuff I've been working on. Well, all the cool stuff I've been writing. I should really start listing the cool stuff I've been editing of other people. Good idea, me. Um, and yeah, back from hiatus now. So, gonna be Sundays at 4 p.m. Central for a while longer, and then I'm looking for a new time and date to do like time and day of the week to do this on. So, if you're out there and you have strong opinions about a day of the week and a time that really work for you, because this one doesn't and it interrupts your entire Sunday like it does me, then let me know. I am open to suggestions, of course. I've got another month or so of guests scheduled out at this time, and then I'll be making changes. Around then, I'll probably also be in the middle of writing a big project instead of the 57 pages of editing I'm doing now. Well, it's 57 now. I already turned over like 70 for it, and then I just finished 126 project. It's been a summer of editing.
That's a lot of editing. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm really excited for both of those though. edited a game by Craig Campbell, Nerdburger Games, called Nowhereville that he kickstarting. Sorry, it's a horror game, so I've been entrenched in horror this summer, which has been odd for me. I don't like horror, but whatever. I'm currently getting that, and also doing the Master Technician's Guide for Esper Genesis, which so super excited for both of those to get to publishing. I know a lot of people are waiting both of those games, so I will get that information up while I put the rest of the list of other things that everyone else is cool. Um, but yeah, so that's what I've been up to while I've been gone. That said, I think that's going to be it for today's show. So until next time, everyone, thanks so much.